Tripoli is the de jure capital city and the largest city of Libya. Tripoli, with its metropolitan area, has a population of about 1.1 million people. The city is located in the northwestern part of Libya on the edge of the desert, on a point of rocky land projecting into the Mediterranean and forming a bay. Tripoli includes the port of Tripoli and the country's largest commercial and manufacturing center. It is also the site of the University of Tripoli. The vast Bab al-Azizia barracks, which includes the former family estate of Muammar Gaddafi, is also located in the city. Colonel Gaddafi largely ruled the country from his residence in this barracks. Tripoli was founded in the 7th century BC by the Phoenicians, who named it here. Due to the city's long history, there are many sites of archaeological significance in Tripoli. Tripoli may also refer to the Shabaya, the Tripoli district. Name: Tripoli is also known as Tripoli of the West, to distinguish it from its older Phoenician sister city Tripoli, Lebanon, known in Arabic as Arabilis el-Sham, meaning Levantine Tripoli. It is affectionately called the Mermaid of the Mediterranean, describing its turquoise waters and its whitewashed buildings. Tripoli English pronunciation: Tripoli, is a Greek name that means three cities, introduced in Western European languages through the Italian Tripoli. In Arabic, it is called Arabilus, Libyan Arabic. Rabel's pronunciation: Berber, Rabels, from ancient Greek, Tauro iota pi micron lambda iota sigma Tripolis. Compare Sanskrit, tri, meaning the number 3, and pura, meaning a fortress, castle, city or town. Hence, in Sanskrit, Tripura also means three cities. History: the city was founded in the 7th century BC, by the Phoenicians, who gave it the Libyco-Berber name Ea, suggesting that the city may have been built upon an existing older native Berber town. The Phoenicians were probably attracted to the site by its natural harbor, flanked on the western shore by the small, easily defensible peninsula, on which they established their colony. The city then passed into the hands of the rulers of Cyrenaica, although the Carthaginians later wrested it from the Greeks. By the later half of the 2nd century BC it belonged to the Romans, who included it in the province of Africa, and gave it the name of Regia Sitica. Around the beginning of the 3rd century AD, it became known as the Regia Tripolitana, meaning region of the three cities, namely Ea, Sabratha and Leptis Magna. It was probably raised to the rank of a separate province by Septimius Severus, who was a native of Leptis Magna. In spite of centuries of Roman habitation, the only visible Roman remains, apart from scattered columns and capitals, is the Arch of Marcus Aurelius from the 2nd century AD. The fact that Tripoli has been continuously inhabited, unlike e.g., Sabratha and Leptis Magna, has meant that the inhabitants have either quarried material from older buildings, or built on top of them, burying them beneath the streets, where they remain largely unexcavated. There is evidence to suggest that the Tripolitania region was in some economic decline during the 5th and 6th centuries, in part due to the political unrest spreading across the Mediterranean world in the wake of the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, as well as pressure from the invading Vandals. According to al-Baladuri, Tripoli was, unlike Western North Africa, taken by the Muslims very early after Alexandria, in the 22nd year of the Hijra, that is between the 30th of November 642 and the 18th of November 643 AD. Following the conquest, Tripoli was ruled by dynasties based in Cairo, Egypt and Kairouan in Ifriqiya. For some time it was a part of the Berber Almohad Empire and of the Hafsids kingdom. It was part of the Ottoman Empire between the 16th and 19th centuries. 16th to 19th centuries. In 1510, it was taken by Don Pedro Navarro, Count of Oliveto for Spain, and, in 1523, it was assigned to the Knights of St. John, who had lately been expelled by the Ottoman Turks from their stronghold on the island of Rhodes. Finding themselves in very hostile territory, the knights enhanced the city's walls and other defenses. though built on top of a number of older buildings. Much of the earliest defensive structures of the Tripoli castle are attributed to the Knights of St. John, having previously combated piracy from their base on Rhodes. The reason that the Knights were given charge of the city was to prevent it from relapsing into the nest of Barbary pirates as it had been prior to the Spanish occupation. The disruption the pirates caused to the Christian shipping lanes in the Mediterranean had been one of the main incentives for the Spanish conquest of the city. The Knights kept the city with some trouble until 1551, when they were compelled to surrender to the Ottomans, led by Muslim Turgut Reis. Turgut Reis served as Pasha of Tripoli. During his rule he adorned and built up the city, making it one of the most impressive cities along the North African coast. Turgut was also buried in Tripoli after his death in 1565. His body was taken from Malta, where he had fallen during the Ottoman siege of the island, to a tomb in the mosque he had established close to his palace in Tripoli. The palace has since disappeared, but the mosque, along with his tomb, still stands, close to the Bab al-Bar gate. After the capture by the Ottoman Turks, Tripoli once again became a base of operation for Barbary pirates. One of several Western attempts to dislodge them again was a Royal Navy attack under John Narborough in 1675, of which a vivid eyewitness account has survived. Effective Ottoman rule during this period was often hampered by the local Janissary Corps, intended to function as enforcers of local administration. The captain of the Janissaries and his cronies were often the de facto rulers. In 1711, Ahmed Karamanli, a Janissary officer of Turkish origin, killed the Ottoman governor, the Pasha, and established himself as ruler of the Tripolitania region. By 1714, he had asserted a sort of semi-independence from the Ottoman Sultan, heralding in the Karamanli dynasty. The Pashas of Tripoli were expected to pay a regular tributary tax to the Sultan, but were in all other aspects rulers of an independent kingdom. This order of things continued under the rule of his descendants, accompanied by the brazen piracy and blackmailing until 1835, when the Ottoman Empire took advantage of an internal struggle and re-established its authority. The Ottoman province of Tripoli lay along the southern shore of the Mediterranean between Tunisia in the west and Egypt in the east. Besides the city itself, the area included Cyrenaica, the chain of oases in the Augila Depression, Fezzan and the oases of Ghadams and Gat, separated by sandy and stony wastelands. Barbary wars in the early part of the 19th century. The Regency at Tripoli, owing to its piratical practices, was twice involved in war with the United States. In May 1801, the Pasha demanded an increase in the tribute which the U.S. government had been paying since 1796 for the protection of their commerce from piracy. Under the 1796 treaty with Tripoli, the demand was refused, and a naval force was sent from the United States to blockade Tripoli. The First Barbary War dragged on for 4 years. In 1803, Tripolitan fighters captured the U.S. frigate Philadelphia and took its commander, Captain William Bainbridge, and the entire crew as prisoners. This was after the Philadelphia was run aground when the captain tried to navigate too close to the port of Tripoli. After several hours aground and Tripolitan gunboats firing upon the Philadelphia, though none ever struck the Philadelphia, Captain Bainbridge made the decision to surrender. The Philadelphia was later turned against the Americans and anchored in Tripoli harbor as a gun battery while her officers and crew were held prisoners in Tripoli. Decatur's men set fire to the Philadelphia and escaped. The most colorful incident in the war was the expedition undertaken by William Eaton with the object of replacing the Pasha with an elder brother, living in exile, who had promised to accede to all the wishes of the United States. Eaton, at the head of a crew of 500 U.S. Marines, Greek, Arab and Turkish mercenaries, marched across the desert from Alexandria, Egypt, and with the aid of American ships, succeeded in capturing Derna. Soon afterward, on the 3rd of June 1805, peace was concluded. The Pasha ended his demands and received $60,000 as ransom for the Philadelphia prisoners under the 1805 treaty with Tripoli. In 1815, in consequence of further outrages and due to the humiliation of the earlier defeat, Captains Bainbridge and Stephen Decatur, at the head of an American squadron, again visited Tripoli and forced the Pasha to comply with the demands of the United States. See Second Barbary War. Late Ottoman era. In 1835, the Ottomans took advantage of a local civil war to reassert their direct authority. After that date, Tripoli was under the direct control of the Sublime Porte. Rebellions in 1842 and 1844 were unsuccessful. After the French occupation of Tunisia, the Ottomans increased their garrison in Tripoli considerably. Italian era. Italy had long claimed that Tripoli fell within its zone of influence and that Italy had the right to preserve order within the state, under the pretext of protecting its own citizens living in Tripoli from the Ottoman government. It declared war against the Ottomans on 29 September 1911, and announced its intention of annexing Tripoli. On 1 October 1911, a naval battle was fought at Preveza, Greece, and 3 Ottoman vessels were destroyed. By the Treaty of Lausanne, Italian sovereignty was acknowledged by the Ottomans, although the Caliph was permitted to exercise religious authority. Italy officially granted autonomy after the war, but gradually occupied the region. Originally administered as part of a single colony, Tripoli and its surrounding province were a separate colony from 26 June 1927 to 3 December 1934, when all Italian possessions in North Africa were merged into one colony. By 1938, Tripoli had 108,240 inhabitants, including 39,096 Italians. Tripoli underwent a huge architectural and urbanistic improvement under Italian rule. The first thing the Italians did was to create in the early 1920s a sewage system and a modern hospital. In the coast of the province was built in 1937–1938 a section of the Littorania-Balbia, a road that went from Tripoli and Tunisia's frontier to the border of Egypt. The car tag for the Italian province of Tripoli was TL. Furthermore, the Italians, in order to promote Tripoli's economy, founded in 1927 the Tripoli International Fair, which is considered to be the oldest trade fair in Africa. The so-called Fiera Internazionale di Tripoli was one of the main international fairs in the colonial world in the 1930s, and was internationally promoted together with the Tripoli Grand Prix as a showcase of Italian Libya. The Italians created the Tripoli Grand Prix, an international motor racing event first held in 1925 on a racing circuit outside Tripoli. The first airport in Libya, the Melaha Air Base, was built by the Italian Air Force in 1923 near the Tripoli racing circuit. Tripoli even had a railway station with some small railway connections to nearby cities. When in August 1941 the Italians started to build a new 1,040 km railway gauge, like the one used in Egypt and Tunisia, between Tripoli and Benghazi. But the war stopped the construction the next year. Tripoli was controlled by Italy until 1943 when the provinces of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica were captured by Allied forces. The city fell to troops of the British 8th Army on 23 January 1943. Tripoli was then governed by the British until independence in 1951. Under the terms of the 1947 peace treaty with the Allies, Italy relinquished all claims to Libya. Gaddafi era. On 15 April 1986, U.S. President Ronald Reagan ordered major bombing raids, dubbed Operation El Dorado Canyon, against Tripoli and Benghazi, killing 45 Libyan military and government personnel as well as 15 civilians. This strike followed U.S. interception of telex messages from Libya's East Berlin embassy suggesting the involvement of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi in a bomb explosion on 5 April in West Berlin's Lane, Bell discotheque. a nightclub frequented by U.S. servicemen. Among the alleged fatalities of the 15th of April retaliatory attack by the United States was Gaddafi's adopted daughter, Hannah. United Nations sanctions against Libya were lifted in 2003, which increased traffic through the port of Tripoli and had a positive impact on the city's economy. Libyan civil war in February and March 2011. Tripoli witnessed intense anti-government protests and violent government responses resulting in hundreds killed and wounded. The city's Green Square was the scene of some of the protests. The anti-Gaddafi protests were eventually crushed, and Tripoli was the site of pro-Gaddafi rallies. The city defenses loyal to Gaddafi included the military headquarters at Bab al-Aziziyah and the Mitiga International Airport. At the latter, on 13 March, Ali Atiyy, a colonel of the Libyan Air Force, defected and joined the revolution. In late February, rebel forces took control of Zawiya, a city approximately 50 kilometers to the west of Tripoli, thus increasing the threat to pro-Gaddafi forces in the capital. During the subsequent Battle of Zawiya, loyalist forces besieged the city and eventually recaptured it by 10 March. As the 2011 military intervention in Libya commenced on 19 March to enforce a UN no-fly zone over the country, the city once again came under air attack. It was the second time that Tripoli was bombed since the 1986 U.S. airstrikes, and the second time since the 1986 airstrike that bombed Bab al-Aziziyah, Gaddafi's heavily fortified compound. In July and August, Libyan online revolutionary communities posted tweets and updates on attacks by rebel fighters on pro-government vehicles and checkpoints. In one such attack, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and Abdullah Senussi were targets. The government, however, denied revolutionary activity inside the capital. Several months after the initial uprising, rebel forces in the Nafusa Mountains advanced towards the coast, retaking Zawiya and reaching Tripoli on 21 August. On 21 August, the symbolic Green Square, immediately renamed Martyrs Square by the rebels, was taken under rebel control and pro-Gaddafi posters were torn down and burned. During a radio address on 1 September, Gaddafi declared that the capital of the Great Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya had been moved from Tripoli to Sirte, after rebels had taken control of Tripoli. In August and September 2014, Islamist armed groups extended their control of central Tripoli. The Council of Deputies Parliament set up operations on a Greek car ferry in Tobruk. A rival New General National Congress Parliament continued to operate in Tripoli. Law and government. Tripoli and its surrounding suburbs all lie within the Tripoli Shahbiyah. In accordance with Libya's former Jamahiriya political system, Tripoli comprises local people's congresses where, in theory, the city's population discuss different matters and elect their own People's Committee. At present, there are 29 local People's Congresses. In reality, the former revolutionary committees severely limited the democratic process by closely supervising committee and Congress elections at the branch and district levels of governments, Tripoli being no exception. Tripoli is sometimes referred to as the de jure capital of Libya, because none of the country's ministries are actually located in the capital. Even the former National General People's Congress was held annually in the city of Sirte rather than in Tripoli. As part of a radical decentralization program undertaken by Gaddafi in September 1988, all General People's Committee secretariats, except those responsible for foreign liaison and information, were moved outside Tripoli. According to diplomatic sources, the former Secretariat for Economy and Trade was moved to Benghazi, the Secretariat for Health to Kufra, and the remainder, excepting one, to Sirte, Muammar Gaddafi's birthplace. In early 1993 it was announced that the Secretariat for Foreign Liaison and International Cooperation was to be moved to Ras Lanuf. In October 2011, Libya fell to the National Transitional Council, which took full control, abolishing the Gaddafi-era system of national and local government.